What have you learned that is new for you? So you think the collective, so this is the review of last week. What have you learned that's new? You don't have to tell us what you already knew, because I know that you're experts and you know a lot. Okay, so that's fine. What else do you think you'd like to cover? You know, just for your own, because everybody has individual aspirations for this course. Okay, you will come from such different agencies and places. So Amos, you can join in on the conversation from here, even if we can't talk about what we learned last week. But there is a lot of material from last week on Canvas, which you'll be able to. So maybe at the morning tea break, you can talk with Florence or Gay about how to access all the materials that we shared with each other last week. And then any other information that you'd like to share with us, okay, knowing that it's confidential, okay, because don't put your name on the top. But do talk. You know, you learn a lot through action and sharing. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. That sort of thing, okay? Right, so everybody stand. We're going to welcome Mohammad. He's got the guitar, but we'll give it a shot, right? Te Aroha, Te Whakapono, Me Te Rangi Marie, Tato Tato E, Te Aroha, Te Whakapono, Me Te Rangi Marie, Tato Tato E. Kia ora, well done. Awesome. Okay, I'm handing over to Mohammad. I'll be back in a couple of hours. Have fun, do the right thing, work hard.
See you again.
You too.
So Jennifer and I had a talk the other day after our session finished, and I told her like it would be really good if we could have like another session to go through the activities together, and she was so kind to offer us this time, this extra session to do this. So I'm not going to go over the what we covered in this slide, but we're just going to focus on the databases, right, and the activities that we have to skip. The other day.
This is not what we have to figure it out.
I'll just use the arrow. So,
The same one.
Okay, so this is the activity that we want to work on for the first one, right? So there are 3 questions here, and we want to actually answer these questions by using these data. You need to download these data in panel format, and then answer these questions. You know how to go online and go to this website, right? So what you need to do is that you just click on that here, which is a hyperlink, which will direct you to the website, to that database, right? Can you all please do that?
It's in data sets.
Are you all on this page? Yes? So now please scroll down to the access data. The first one is open data and data bank. So click on query the database. And that should bring you to this page. Any question? Do you guys have any questions?
He was not here last week.
Yes, he was.
Doesn't have
He was
access to
not
the
here.
information, yes.
So, I can help you with that.
He just joined us this week.
Okay. So what you need to do, you don't have any Wi-Fi. How did you get your Wi-Fi username? Who provided?
They provided. She was going to help me, but she forgot. And she
Okay.
Let me check it out.
So now I need to get it right.
These are the indicators that we need to download. Okay? So GDP as measured in current US dollar, that shows the size of the economy, right? And if you've noticed on the database, we've got both GDP constant 2015 US dollar or GDP current US dollar. The difference between these two is that this one includes inflation as well. Right? In the calculation of GDP, you need the volume of production, like the quantity of goods produced, and the price. This is how you calculate GDP, right? In current US dollar, it means that you multiply the total quantity of goods and services produced within a country by the price of that year. Okay, so GDP of Papua New Guinea in 2025 is the volume of goods and services produced within the border of PNG multiplied by the prices of in 2025 prices. Now, the constant 2015 US dollar, you still, to calculate the GDP of PNG in 2025, you have the volume of production, you have the quantity, but here instead of multiplying by 2025 prices, you multiply it by 2015 prices, right? Why we do that? To take out the effect of inflation and put the focus on the quantity only. Okay? Now, why 2015? Why not 2010? Why not 2020? It's just it's a base year, and economists choose this base year usually. They choose different base year, but they are interested in the years that no major global shocks happened, right? So, for example, you won't see any GDP constant 2020 because that year pandemic happened, right? Or you won't see anything about GDP 2008 or 9 because global financial crisis happened, right? But you would see 2015, you would see 1990. All right, so you need GDP. You need to download GDP in current US dollar. Trade as a percentage of GDP. That means goods and services exported and imported from your country to the rest of the world, or to your partners, trade partners. And that's an indication of trade openness, if you remember from our last session. So this is an indication of trade openness. The third and the fourth ones are export and import of goods and services, both in current US dollar and in percentage of GDP. Okay? You also want to have an individual look on the amount of export, on the amount of import, So basically want to break down trade into export and import. And if you remember from the widths database, which we're going to go over it next, we do this breakdown further. We just do like a more detailed breakdown. Now, what kind of product we exported? Who are our partners? Right? And same for the import. But now here we just want to have like a broad picture of your country or any other Pacific countries trade or GDP. Okay? All right. So now that you have like a good understanding of these indicators, let's go online on this database and choose these this series and the country you want to look at. In these slides, you can look at, for example, the second question: what does your country's trade profile look like compared to New Zealand and the other Pacific countries? So you're free to choose whatever Pacific country you want to look at. Oh, yeah, but I would probably go with New Zealand, maybe Australia, Fiji, Vanuatu, and I mean, last session we found that there are no data on PNG, unfortunately, so just want to skip that one. So here on the country, we type in New Zealand. Australia. We'll also look at this one, the Pacific Island Islamic State, which is like an aggregated version of this. Now that you chose your countries, then do you want to do the next part, which is the series? So the first one was GDP. I scrolled down and found this GDP. If you look at here, you see that, for example, GDP in current LCU. LCU refers to your local currency. Okay? So instead of measuring in US dollar, it's measured in your local currency. That is constant LCU. That is constant 2015 US dollar. That's what I was telling you. Trade. I'm going to look at the last 25 years, post 2000.
What is the database?
WDI. You can find the link on page 6 slides.
I've got the part. I mean,
The database?
in that database,
Yeah.
the variables.
database.
The variables, these are the variables that we chose. Those 6.
Like, is it the world development indicators? Or?
Yes, that's the world development. That's the database that we're looking at, world development indicators.
Percentage of GDP. And then current years, yes. Country could also PNG because data see
I've chosen the last 25 years. I think that should be. And then you just need to click on apply changes. Once you choose the country you're interested in, the series and the time, you can click on apply changes, and this is the data, right? Developing data from 2001 to 2025 for New Zealand only. So if I ask you what sort of data structure that one is, then what would you say? We're looking at, based on this structure, this layout, we're looking at one country over 25 years. So that's time series.
time series.
Right? This is the basically the default layout. Whatever you choose, the default layout is time series. Right? There's also a chart button here. So you can click on and see the results or the data as like but that's the option that you can use.
Imagine being able to do.
Now we wanted to, wanted to download it as panel data. To download as panel data, you need to do some changes in the layout. So in panel data, we had, if you remember, like the Excel spreadsheet that we had like countries listed here with years in front of it, and the series on the top. Okay, so we would like to put series as columns, both country and year as rows. Remember? So in order of the order, so I move country to the row, country row, time row, and series is column. Apply changes, and there you go. So we have Australia from 2001 to 2025. Fiji. Oh, we don't have data for Fiji as well, so you might want to exclude Fiji. All the same for Pacific Islands. So maybe I would probably, we would need to change that. Just maybe focus on I just focus on 3 countries: Australia, New Zealand, Vanuatu. Is there any other country that you think might be interesting to look at?
Samoa?
Samoa? Yeah. Which one? American Samoa or the Samoa?
Samoa. Western Samoa.
Western Samoa. Up here.
So let's see. New Zealand. Samoa. We've got the data on Samoa as well. So 4 countries in total. So you may want to look at the same countries, but totally up to you which countries you want to choose. Now we're in the layout tab. So now, in addition to the orientation thing that you have here, like the layout, there are also some sort of menu underneath that. So we've got display. So that will tell you how many rows you want per page. That's not what we're interested in. But formatting numbers, that's something that you may want to change. So for example, you see those ellipses here, like these things, when you download it, it shows us exactly look like this in your spreadsheet. And then when you import, for example, this data export it into your statistical software, the software may not recognize these. Okay? These are missing data. But when you put any character in that cell, then that software may not recognize this as a missing data. So what you may want to do, that's what I always do. The software that includes this data, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this data, but what I always do is put blank. I want all those empty cells to be shown as blank. Look here. Now blank. Okay. The other thing that you may want to do is to change the units of those numbers. So you can have it in thousands, in millions, in billions, up to you. I mean, you can change that one. I'm not going to mess with that. But the precision is something that I usually change it. I usually limit it to 1 decimal point. Just for simplicity. But if your analysis has to be, it's so sensitive to accuracy of the data, you might want to have, more decimal points. And if that's not really important, you want to have like a simple, you're not really fussy about this, then you can choose 1 decimal point. I wish I don't have to start from scratch. All right. How many are we in class today?
I'm still out here.
14 in class.
One.
We have 5 groups, 8. I want you to get in groups and work on this question. But before getting to the question, let's just create a chart. So you know how to do it, right? You select the data, click on Insert tab on the top, and then pivot table. And then we'll say that you might open the worksheet. You said yes, of course, why not? And now you should see something like this. Then you need to drag and drop some variables. So country name in the columns, time in rows. Now, we can have a look at trade, exports, goods and services. Same time. All percentage of GDP, all the same one. And then you know that it looks really good, so you click on value field settings and you click on average. And do the same for all. Let's see what went wrong. Just looking at trade as percentage of GDP. Alright? And now that you have this, have you all been able to create that table for you? Yourself? Did you know how we got that? So once you have you all downloaded your data? Yes. Okay, good. Now what you need to do, go on the top left side of the cell. There's a tab called Insert. Click on that. The first thing that shows up is Pivot Table. And then click on Pivot Table. Then a box will pop up on your screen. Click OK. Yes. And then a new worksheet will be created for you. Right. Now, to get this beautiful table here, what you need to do is that you need to drag and drop some variables into these fields here. Okay? So we want country name as columns. We want time as rows. We want trade as percentage of GDP as values. Right. Did you get this table? No? What's the problem then? Did you download 20 countries? I would suggest to, just focus, limit your countries and series to a few for the sake of this activity.
Fiji and Samoa. Yeah, Fiji, sorry. Fiji, Samoa now. I think that's the,
Yeah. Is this okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
The Fiji. The Fiji does Luxury shelter.
Close to A. Please, sorry.
Oh, okay. You're supposed to change this.
Yeah. So drag and drop. Country name. Country name in the column. In rows. And the trade as Oh, yeah.
Is it pivot chart or
Sure. Okay.
which one? First or second? This is first one. This one.
Remove that. Focus on one picture.
It's different from mine.
You see this one? There's something. See to the Dropbox there. One moment. Keep it down. This one.
Let me see.
Read this percentage of one M column.
For country. Sticky.
Trade is specific.
Big box must up. If you don't check, another one. That one. No. Yeah. Then you start thinking.
This is two.
Oh, that's good. It is just something, just in there. It was on.
Four different.
So the 4 countries. Australia.
They're not the same. I think they're different. Sports, current US.
Okay, you guys. It's the right one. I'm going to select this one.
Yeah. You need to.
It's 5 clouds, 6 just show him how low.
Yeah. And then drag and drop. Country name in columns, time in rows, and trade in values.
Including Australia.
Gosh, it's not wrong. Helios. I just had greatest percentage of GDP. Bring it down to values. Okay, thank you.
Nah. Thank you. Down the road, country. Down the road,
Average.
cities, you select two cities. Click on cities.
So we look country.
Okay, you select one.
Choose
So
only.
area where you like checking program.
Can you go?
You select that. You go begin low cities. Time here. You want politics. Politics and you select one. Trade off GDP. We talked to me previous time. Then you select one and then from there now you apply change.
Drag and drop. And then you'll be fine.
Country na code bro. Na series.
The country, but
Long series. Value.
country time. Country time. Yeah.
Hold on. Just hold down, you see the top, sir. Just someone. Hold on. Serious name, serious code.
Ask one of you, because your table has 4 documents, please ask one of you to join.
This got done. I can dribble here.
I think it's better to use.
That's why I'm quick on it. No, maybe problems. Yes, you don't come.
So, which countries are you all 3 looking at?
We're looking at all 4.
You're looking at 4 countries?
Yes.
What are them? What are those countries?
There's Samoa. We have New
Samoa?
Zealand, Australia, Samoa, and Vanuatu.
Oh, same as me. Good. What about your group? What countries are you looking at?
Six.
6 countries? I mean, all of you are looking at the same 6 countries? I mean, can you please work with yourself, right? And come up with the same 6 countries? You need to discuss the questions among yourself. Better to look at the same countries, instead of different countries. What about your group? Are you looking at the same countries or different countries?
So we're gonna have to pick 4.
I mean, you can pick 3, 4, 5. I mean, up to you. Don't but choose similar ones. And
Different countries.
different countries? All of you different countries?
No.
Some similar.
Yes, some similar. Australia.
I mean, do you have like 3?
Select the 4 countries and then different names.
But I want you to look at same countries because we want to discuss questions per group, and I want the people in the same group to have the same set of countries.
That's what
I should have told you, I forgot. How the country should be selected. And one of you to join him in the back.
He's joining us.
You join us.
Okay.
Fiji, Australia, New Zealand, PNG, Fiji. No, not Fiji.
There's no data for both PNG and Fiji. That's why we excluded them.
Okay, so Fiji.
You need to change your focus to other Pacific islands or other countries.
Samoa.
Which one is Samoa?
Okay. Now that you are all in this, you all have this data. If you've got them, then
Australia, Vanuatu,
Samoa.
no Samoa. You leave the country, yeah. Samoa.
you need to click on recommended charts and then line graphs, and you will is something like this.
Similar to PNG.
You all get the same.
Okay, time that's all.
See this one. No, I want this one. Let's clean my tape.
2000 come current.
2000.
Okay, what is on
15 years.
I know what if you have but what
percent of GDP. It was exported. This one? Trader. How do you see that? So I'm just checking my current use. How do you get out of this? Yeah, but my grand total is different from...
Because you choose a different country. There is PNG in your group, but we don't have PNG. We have Samoa and Vanuatu.
Did you remove PNG?
So what you can do is that you can maybe remove Guinea from your page.
Remove it from...
Attribute over them. Attribute other layer.
This no country
Economia no mania to bolo. We get on like clicking on Aroha, but
okay, stop.
Ja, tu peux encore le lire.
20 by
Variables pastel. C'était un bien. Remember, still loading,
Yeah, that's fine. I mean,
President should show 20.
the
filter. On your time 20.
Popular country. Selected one.
Okay, now we try apply.
filter the data. Do you have these slides? Okay, so now getting grouping based on the graphs that you can generate with the data. then discuss the questions, try to answer the questions. This is just the figure for trade as a percentage of GDP. Now, if you want to get a graph, what you need to do is to just replace this with and then generate the graph. But if you want to have have this graph, then you can copy it and paste it in another sheet. What?
Something given
We try apply first.
sorry,
Apply first of this.
I think I'll propose.
I'm gonna do it. I need to see
Choose your country.
this is how it looks. Answering question plus changes. Come underneath.
Sorry?
Click on Australia.
Before we go into the question, this is how much for him now. He's doing time. Sometimes
And time would go up. Country on top, time in the middle, series in the bottom. But time is going to be low, series is going to be high.
Je sais même pas si t'as la PDF.
so we chose.
Then you might once you select him, come on time now. You can by changing the layout.
Okay, now we can.
Upload is now.
Already.
Now you start already. Now you start
No, just 4 is enough. Australia, New Zealand, Samoa, 1
Let me just snap this.
You haven't chosen this.
Play must look the same.
25 years. I mean, you can click individually, but that will take
by citizen.
time. So click on 25.
Moving country.
We download itself.
Apply
Open
change.
it. And then we do change.
Click on it.
Looks much better.
You haven't
Okay, wait,
you
past
haven't
that.
chosen your series.
Serious, yeah.
This has to high down.
Serious. This one.
You need to you need to what have you
Thread.
Yes. Type in
This plastic.
You almost wrote, but I don't
that's good. Now
Using
do the same. But don't type in the whole term like trade.
shade openness.
The results will
We
be like
hide.
more and more.
Why didn't you
Make it, yeah.
One
Select these countries.
the full number?
no, it's the export.
And then
What's 11?
oh, that's
That's all.
the numbers are too big.
How many put on? We do
So that
export
means
separate.
There was a way we could change this on the media.
Surface graph you may make
Okay. The number of
straight
How will I publish?
integer.
Oh yeah, okay, I see. Continue question 6.
Sorry, we should have talked you page now.
Plus Now let's do them. Change the highlighted it and
Try to move that video up. I don't know, for some reason it went down.
So many people accessing the website. It's just us.
Just like this, but mine is going down there, but how do I move this tree?
Probably can be.
The website is looking like this on your laptop. But I mean, what you can do is, if only one of you could download the the whole interpretation.
It's already on that one, so we
Yeah.
can follow up.
So country and time rule, that's okay. Have you downloaded the data?
Not yet.
Excellent.
and then click him sa triangle yan. Prima.
It's loading. Let's wait.
See,
Any possible reason?
here, look at my screen. Yeah, she doesn't have it. Just click, right click. Is this one?
That's the 1960.
After we select one.
Hey, buddy. I wonder. Time here wrong here. That's why no space so it was come.
Oh, under alignment
25,
numbers, font number. See? That's what you got it. Select all.
2000 came on.
Just highlight everything.
What's happening?
Because you never.
Now, these are the questions. I hope you all got the right graphs. But these are the questions that you need to discuss in your group. So, for example, the one that we just looked at, the graph, was trade as a percentage of GDP. So the first question is about that. So how has trade openness changed in your country, or in the country of 2000? And are there any periods where openness rises or falls? And if you could find like possible reasons behind that. And the second one asks about your country trade profile. So there you would need to look at exports and imports. You want to see whether your country is a net exporter or net importer. And if you could find the reason behind it, that would be good as well. And based on these two, you want to see what are the broad risks and challenges. Okay? Now it's 12. We've got the room until 12:45. Okay? We should have done this activity by now, but let's just talk. I'll give you like 15 minutes, and then I'll give you 15 minutes to discuss this question, and then I will ask a volunteer from each group to share your findings with us. By now, you should have like a good understanding of how you can get data, how to show data on Excel, and now let's go over like each of these data individually to see what we can get out of it, right? The whole purpose is to interpret the data. Now, if, for example, ask you what you can get out of this simple chart here, then what would you say? What is the interesting thing here? We're looking at 4 countries of Australia, New Zealand, Samoa, and Vanuatu. 2 of them are big, the other 2 are smaller. So, and this is for GDP. This graph shows the GDP of 4 countries. Anyone, any volunteers? This is just the data on GDP, okay? What I did was just to drag in GDP here. Okay? You don't need to do this. Just look at this graph here and tell me what you can get out of it. What is the interesting thing?
Yeah. That's Australia's GDP, yeah.
Yeah.
Blue.
In blue, yeah.
New Zealand.
The blue line is Australia.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay? The green line, sorry, the red line is New Zealand. And the purple line, green one is Samoa and Vanuatu. Right?
Australia's GDP has increased from 2001.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cannot see it from there.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to.
Yeah. 2001 and then. Yeah, it's like 400 million. Huh?
That's 400,000 million. The unit is in million.
Yeah.
Okay? It starts from 400,000 million to now around
1,800,000,000.
million.
Million, yeah.
So, and this is for New Zealand,
New
right?
Zealand, yeah. So that's a huge difference between.
That's a huge difference
Yeah.
between these two countries. So, yes, but when you look at the data like in 2001, you see that the gap between these two countries are not that much
Yeah.
as the gap in 2024. And that's a big gap. I mean, of course, that one showed that Australia developed so quickly compared to New Zealand.
Yeah.
What are the reasons behind it? Multiple, numerous reasons behind it. One of them could be the population. We don't know the population growth in these two countries. But for example, now Australia has 20 million, New Zealand has 5 million. That can explain. The other thing might be the level of productivity. One thing that New Zealand has been kind of dealing with recently is productivity, slower rate of productivity compared to the global rate or compared to the counterparts like in the region. Now you can see that Samoa and Vanuatu basically compared to these two economies just so small, so their GDP is kind of actually like a flat line. So if we can exclude these two countries here, now we can have the GDP for both Samoa and Vanuatu. And it's interesting to see that both of them are kind of closely following each other, right? It's so interesting. Anyone can explain that to me? Like
Samoa and
Vanuatu. What do you think these two countries have like the same, first the same rate of GDP, second why they are so closely simply following each other?
The size of the country is quite similar, population-wise,
Yeah.
and maybe the resources that they
Yeah.
depend on is more like on ocean and fisheries resources. Yeah.
So both the resources and the population.
Yeah.
And to me, it shows that the knowledge transfer or technology transfer between these two countries were also very good. Because they moved hand in hand from the year 2001 to 2024. And in some years, Samoa was above Vanuatu, and then in recent years, basically below. Good. And let's forget about GDP and move on to trade. stop this. So we have trade as a percentage of GDP. Now you can see all countries on the same graph, compared to the last one, which basically Vanuatu and Samoa was kind of removed because of the huge difference between the size of the economy. Here you can have all of them in one graph. Again, the interesting thing for me is the Samoa and Vanuatu. Both of them have same level of GDP, but for one, okay. Let me just remove this blank line here. The blue line is Australia, and the red line is New Zealand. So sorry, for me, just Australia. Let's just focus on Australia and New Zealand. If you look at these two countries, for Australia, they have been basically increasing their trade over these years. But for New Zealand, interestingly, if you remember from the last session, we said 50% of New Zealand GDP is made up of trade. But back then it was around 70%. But for Australia, it was quite different. And if you look at Samoa and Vanuatu, we see that both of them has like a very sharp decrease, especially Vanuatu in 2018. Started to decline significantly, the purple line. The purple line is Vanuatu. And then we've got Samoa. Both of them declined, but for Vanuatu, this decline is so significant. Any reason?
Can we see the year? Because I see that they haven't. They had an earthquake in 2024. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
This is data for 2024.
is that 2024?
That's the 2024, but we don't. This is for Samoa, but we don't have it.
For
For
Vanuatu.
Vanuatu, we have up until 2023. So that might be the
They
reason.
had an earthquake, a massive earthquake.
Yeah.
Maybe the drop is big drop.
COVID-19 happened in 2020, basically here.
Earthquake.
And both countries their trade level kind of dropped. But I want to know the reason why for Vanuatu.
I know we had cyclone Pau in 2018.
So some sort of natural disaster.
Cyclone Pau, yeah, that's right.
Cyclone.
2017 or 2018, around that
They
time.
had a cyclone.
Was it around that time? Oh, okay. Interesting. The other thing, if you look at all four countries in one, if you want to compare all these four together, then one thing that comes up is that Samoa and Vanuatu's trade proportion of their GDP is much higher than New Zealand, Australia. Right? Look at Vanuatu. So high. It's basically here, if we say this spot is 50%, you can say that there are even more than 100% here. More than 100% of their GDP is made up of. Interesting.
Show you the developed economies. They also depend on services as well. Whereas for the islands, it's majority trade.
Commodity.
Yeah,
I mean, trade dependent for a small nation is kind of common. Small nations are mostly trade dependent. There are pros and cons of that. The main cause of that is that if a global shock happened, like what happened in the pandemic, then the country will be affected significantly. Because of the supply chain and all. So, for example, I think it would be correct to conclude that countries like Vanuatu and Samoa have been affected greatly compared to New Zealand and Australia during the pandemic. Yeah. And New Zealand is also kind of smaller than New Zealand. Australia is also smaller than some other countries, for example, like US or I don't know, some European countries in terms of like GDP. So if for example you had this indicator in the same graph, you would see that they're sitting even below, New Zealand, Australia. So you can say that, okay, depending on the size of the economy, trade plays different role. In smaller nations, they are mainly trade dependent compared to the bigger nations. They are less trade dependent. Yes.
Like as shown in the graph, for us, like other countries and nations doing trade, I mean, we don't really impose the most restrictions, especially compared to the developed nations like New Zealand and Australia. They have stringent, maybe because of that, due to that, it shows it.
Which
the trade restrictions.
The trade restrictions?
Yeah.
So you're saying that one reason that trade has significantly dropped for Vanuatu or Samoa is that because they not have any restrictions?
I mean, like they did not impose any strict, strong restrictions on. I mean, they just went ahead, and maybe because of that, otherwise, Australia and New Zealand, because of people going in and coming out of the country, that's how I understand, just by looking at the graph, because over time.
I mean, if you say trade restrictions, the lack of trade restrictions should increase trade, in my opinion. So if you would say, for example, hey, we've got this increase in trend in Vanuatu's trade, here. If you compare the beginning point and the end point here in 2018, you say, okay, one reason would be the lack of restrictions. We are
the main reason is like me looking at the seasonal workforce.
Yeah.
New Zealand and Australia used to get, that's the biggest impact on the farms and all those other things that people used to work in there. They put a stop to people to come into their countries because of this COVID ingestion and all those other.
So that will explain post-2020 drop. But the 2018 drop, probably the main reason was as your friend said, probably natural disaster that happened. Any other thing that?
Because this Samoa and Vanuatu, they rely on tourists. So that must have.
So Samoa is more touristic nation compared to Vanuatu.
Vanuatu, yeah.
All of them.
Most of them are
Vanuatu,
tourists. Okay, but Vanuatu is more.
Vanuatu is more, yeah.
Yeah, we can see that, for example, Samoa has kind of recovered from that COVID-19 recession, in 2023. But it doesn't mean that Vanuatu couldn't, because we don't have the data for Vanuatu for 2023.
Well, I just want to comment on those graphs. When we look at the graphs for Australia and New Zealand, it's like the shocks are a bit minimal. That's given the base of the economy, because they are more diverse into a bigger economy. There was some shocks given to COVID-19 and stuff, but because of they were very huge, fluctuations cannot be clearly so there because they were covered by by other threats. While given to small Pacific islands, you can see the swings very huge waves like this because they only depend on only one commodity, one only like trade as a issue. So when there's some like effects on the tourism by the COVID-19, you can see the swings, fluctuations there, because they were not observed by other base like the two other countries. So that's why when you look at the two big countries like Australia and New Zealand, the swings a bit minimal because it's covered by other. When one sector is affected, the other sectors comes to cover for those. So that's why, yeah.
Yes, I mean it's true that bigger economies have are more diverse. So if something, a shock or I don't know anything, any negative thing that happens to one sector, other sector can recover for the other one. But for like single commodity economy, or countries that produce only a few or export only a few products, that would be really hard. Yes. Okay. Now let's move on to other export and imports. It looks a little bit messy, so let's just look at the countries, in pair. So Australia's export and import are shown in blue and red. And for New Zealand, it's shown in green and purple. What do you think about it? What do you think about these graphs? Export is the blue line, import is the red line. And for New Zealand, green line is the export. And the purple line is the import. Any idea? Any comment?
Population and geography. Try to think of it in terms of population size.
Well, it is export and import as a percentage of GDP, so we basically take out the effect of population. So let's say, for example, they have 20 million population. So the economy size is bigger compared to the 5 million.
If Sydney alone can hold 20 million, then I don't think it's equivalent to less than more than New Zealand.
I mean, like when export as a percentage of GDP, means export, total value of export divided by total GDP. So you get a percentage of it.
Yeah.
So it's not actually reliant on the number of people. It basically talks about, okay, we know that 50% of New Zealand 50% of New Zealand GDP is made up of trade, but we want to know whether they are exporter or importer, you know?
Well, I think the way the lines are, their shapes are a bit similar.
Yeah.
What they are studying, like when the trend is then downward, it's same. Then like they are trading up as well. So I think this is more bit of control at the international price, maybe fuel source, because when you see like it's more average, it means that they are not comparing to each other. But the trends are they are facing similar bit of shakes that are there, like when they increase, there seems to be trending upward, and then they are trending downward. So it's more to do with something that's that because of the impact there is a bit similar, which I think is to me is like a bit of more the world price, or maybe imported inflation from some major 7 economies.
Again, here because it's percentage, then there is no inflation effect. Okay? Because we divided export or import by. So, for me, you know, when I'm looking at these trends, this one, so, okay, both countries basically follow the same. When New Zealand's trade dropped, this one dropped. Went up, went up. It went up further, didn't go down. You know, they follow really closely. So, you know, these two nations, especially New Zealand, greatly affected by Australia, right? Well, the interesting thing for me here is that I'm actually looking at this data for the first time. Okay? So when I'm looking at this, say, okay, for New Zealand in the year 2020, starting from 2020 when the pandemic happened, you know, import is like over export. The country kind of become a net importer, you know, and the gap kind of increased, right? Now, the import decreased, but it is still above export. The green line is export, the purple line is import. But before that, for many years, import was below export, right? And as a country, you want your export to exceed import. That's an indication of an economy health, you know, progress. Whereas for Australia, look at it, they actually managed to, you know, the export managed to increase their export more than imports. For me, it's a really interesting thing, because that tells me, okay, something really. If I was, you know, as a researcher, I would go and say, okay, what happened in this year in Australia that made their export to be higher than imports, and then. As a country, as a person who lives in New Zealand, said, okay, what lessons can we draw from their, you know, policy, so that we could also increase our export to exceed in the import. That's what I get. Let's just focus on the other two nations and then finish the class. That's a big difference. So Samoa's export is blue.
What color is it?
Samoa's import is green. Sorry, red. So red line is far above blue line. Samoa has been actually the net importer of goods and services. It is normal for
Samoa is
small nations, right? Now, for Vanuatu, it is actually, the story is quite different. Up until 2020, so up until 2020, the difference between import and export. Import is the purple line, and export is the green line. The difference between the export and import, the country has been a net importer, but the gap was maintained as a relative. But then it got bigger, and look at here. Because of that natural disaster, we see like a very big change between import and export. I mean, both of them decreased compared to the years before, but export decreased significantly. And one main reason, as you all mentioned, it was the natural disaster. But Samoa has been doing like they have been a net importer, but they have been consistently being a net importer. Right? We don't see any big changes in their behavior, basically. So when we comparing their import and export, except that this big drop here, which we all know is because of the COVID, and then this increase in import is, we all know it happened before. Now, if you want to look at the size of the population and the effect it has, then you should look at the current terms. Okay? That will include the effect of population, the effect of inflation, because inflation in New Zealand was so different in 2020 from Australia or any other country. We had 7%, 8% inflation, which was the highest in the history of New Zealand, at least in the 30 years. But if you wanted to be accurate, and you wanted to, when it comes to comparison between the countries, you try to take out these effects, these individual effects, population effect, inflation effect, to make the comparison more accurate, more appropriate. All right. It's 1:45, and I understand that it's your lunch time. Before going to lunchtime, John, if you've got any question?
Questions for Mohammad? Clearer than for last Friday? They were like, we want more. Okay, let's give a round of applause.